All right, hello everyone, and welcome to a bonus episode in which I, Tal Munir, am sitting down with my two fellow executive producers, Hannah and Steven.
Hi.
And we're gonna just answer some questions about the show.
Yay. They can't see you if you nod, Steven.
I was just hoping that the vibes would get picked up, just like a subtle warmth emanating from this audio track.
This is my first time recording with a video element, so I'll be nodding a lot too. So it will be on our listeners to catch the vibes.
This one's for the empaths.
Feel our intention.
All right, so I have kind of a fun first question. That's a question from me. I just finished creating the first draft of the audiobook, meaning that I exported a WAV file of every episode without the intros or the credits, all 110 of them. It took 2 weeks, and put them together.
Man.
And I want to know what y'all's guesses are for the length of the audiobook. How many hours of audio did we make?
I'm going to say 25 hours. That feels good in my heart.
I'm going to guess 10 hours.
And I thought 14. It was 18 hours.
Whoa!
Okay.
That's longer than the It audiobook.
Really?
I think so.
Dang.
Or was it? It might have been like 20-something, actually.
Does that make
I
us
don't know.
better than Stephen King? I think it does.
I think so.
I abstain from this conversation as a previous Stephen King podcaster. That's a lot of audiobook, Tal.
Yeah, we made 18 hours of audio pretty quickly.
So quickly.
Yeah.
You people are machines.
For reference, the What Will Be Here master cut was about 5 hours of audio.
Yeah.
That's what I'm used to working with, and this was triple. As a WAV file, it's like 20 gigs. And I bought a hard drive for this.
My God.
And it's not here yet.
So that just is sitting on your computer like a brick.
Yeah, no, when I bought my laptop, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for the 2 terabyte storage option. It's all Dracula right now.
Oops, all Dracula.
Oops, all Dracula. This is my life now. But yeah, I thought that was really fun. I didn't realize we made an 18-hour audio drama.
Good job, team.
It's a
Great
lot.
work.
It's a lot
Good job.
of audio.
Whew.
I have more questions. Not all of them are from me. Someone would like to know, what can I say you? I kind of mean we, but what can you tell us about this upcoming miniseries?
Mm.
So, y'all know that Dracula is not the first vampire story. And in fact, a novella that is also famous predates Dracula by about, 30 years?
25.
25. And this vampire story did not catch on quite so well as Dracula did. I personally don't think it's quite as well written. However, it does include lesbians. So there's that. And I think that says a lot about, the vampires.
Dear listener, vigorous nodding from me and Tal at the mention of lesbians.
And because of that, I think it contributes to the whole vampires as deviancy is the word I was looking for. Yeah, so it's very much true in Camilla, and I think it'll be a really fascinating story, and Jamie Ridenhour's up in it, and I think about palimpsest basically every day, so I'm very excited to see what Jamie's going to do with this adaptation.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to work on adapting this story with someone who has been teaching this novella for decades.
Yeah.
I feel so out of my element. I'm not even an English major. I'm STEM.
Freaking engineer.
What am I doing with this professor? But it's I feel so lucky. And then Jamie knows audio drama.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wow, it's perfect. How did this work out?
Sometimes the stars just align.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Camilla, y'all.
It's gonna be excellent.
But yeah, let me see. Anything else we can share about Camilla?
Oh, can you tell me why? Okay, so you said Irish Camilla, and I was immediately like, well, Maeve de Bruyne is the obvious choice. She's magnificent. But also, why did you say Irish Carmilla?
So the author is Irish, and within the book, Camilla is said to be from the West. And so, like, obviously the setting of the book
Austria-ish.
It's not Ireland, but there was a lot of sort of discussion I didn't, like, read a bunch of academic papers, but, like, I poked about, and there was a lot of interpretations of Camilla as Irish. Not, like, in canon, but, like, in allegory, I guess, for Ireland.
Ooh.
And I thought that was so interesting. And I was like, well, one thing that would just be very cool in this audio adaptation is to just literally make her Irish, because in the book it's never said where she's from. The book leaves a lot of things up to interpretation, up to mystery, which sometimes for me was a little frustrating. But then also when you're adapting it, you get to play around with stuff. And then also Maeve is just spectacular, and regardless of everything,
oh my gosh, yeah,
I think she will kill this role.
Everyone listen to the Silt verses. Just do it. Go on.
But yeah, I guess ultimately it was something that I personally wanted to explore, and Jamie didn't stop me. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So we can play a little more fast and loose with Camilla in ways we couldn't in Dracula, just because Camilla is so much shorter and open. And when I have the ability to mess around with something, I'm gonna, because it's fun. So that's my answer.
That'll be so fun. Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
I think it's interesting moving from Dracula to Camilla, how the flavor and texture of a book immediately informs the adaptation choices that you can make with it. Like, Dracula is a book about record keeping and about specificity of detail. And so a lot of the adaptation we had to do was around, well, how do we convey, okay, this is a letter being written, this is a telegram, whatever. Those had to go into the sound design. And Carmilla's just not that way. It's a much looser piece of text. And so I think we're going to get more of that impressionistic sound design that Tal does so well, and I cannot wait to hear.
So well.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good. Next question.
I want to know, with the benefit of hindsight, is there anything about the project that you would have approached differently?
I learned so much about directing from Ella, and also working with such, like, experienced actors, and, like, knowing what I do now about, I don't know, the way to direct people and knowing what kind of performance I want going in. I think I would have approached some of the specific directing sessions differently, although, like, they're little things. They're things that would not make any difference to anyone who's not me and was in the room when lines were spoken. So, you know, I don't know that it's anything ground shaking, but I really value what I learned from directing from Ella and from this whole experience.
That's a really good answer. Yeah, I would buy that terabyte hard drive a little sooner.
I mean, it's hard to express, like, just how smoothly the process went. Like, more things, now that it's, like, out in the world, I can say this, more things should have gone terribly wrong. Like, there's really no accounting for, because, you know, there was an entire month where I had to kind of go on hiatus for the dialogue edit, which lined up with Tao having more time to take that on. Like,
yeah, it was perfect.
There was the fact that for the first half of recording, Ben was in the US recording very carefully in hotel rooms. Like,
I still am mystified by the quality of audio that he was able to get to us.
Dude is a pro.
I do not know. I am like an engineer at this point in terms of my sound, like, knowledge, and I straight up have no clue how he would find, like, the one corner in the basement of the theater he was in and record, like, pristine. Theaters are really loud places. There's a lot of buzzing.
They
There's
make
a lot
sounds
of
bigger.
Like, cables and people walking around, echoes, and he would just sit down and give me, like, studio quality recordings that sounded consistent across, like, probably 24 locations. And
yeah,
I don't know, the man's a wizard or something? Like, I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah, and fit that in between puppet shows. Like, what?
Right. So I feel like I should have more of an answer for this because we definitely didn't do everything right. Like, there were aspects of this show that like shouldn't have worked. And my only explanation for it is like divine intervention. Like, I don't have
the Lord
a
was
good
on our side also,
understanding, like,
as well as the suitor squad.
So I don't know. Like, there are definitely things I would have done differently in terms of like laying out prep work and all of the organization we did. Even with like the 12 spreadsheets we have, I still think there were ways we could have been even more organized that I would have loved. Specifically, getting the QA process rolling earlier would have been really nice. There are sections in the beginning of this book that are just a little rough around the edges than I prefer. We're just like lines were getting dropped because when you pass through this many hands, like there's just that compounding ability to have things get lost. And by the nature of the beast, like we had to get it out by a certain time. So I think that's really the only thing I would do is just like focus that organization a little differently. But honestly, like I've worked on a lot of shows by this point and none of them have gone as smoothly as this one.
I think I would have, now that I'm thinking about it, I would have collected payment information and known how we were going to pay people before we started having to pay people. that is, I've learned my lesson. I don't want to delay payments anymore. It gives me a literal stomachache to do that.
Yeah, in fairness, there's no way we could have known that the first thing we tried, the second thing we tried, and then I can't remember if the third thing we tried worked or if we had to do a fourth. Like,
I think it worked for most people, and then we had to do a fourth thing for some people, something like that. Yeah, that's true. That's not our fault.
We tried a lot, and then it worked out. Once it worked,
yes.
And we were good. But yeah, in hindsight, being able to anticipate that the first three things wouldn't work would have made things better.
Maybe it's a little much to ask of ourselves.
It would have been nice.
But yeah, no, I agree that things went incredibly smoothly.
Yeah, it really did.
Because we're great.
We're good at this.
And sort of as a follow-up, what did you learn that you'll be taking with you on to future projects? Because I know y'all have things you're working on right now.
I am already applying the things that I learned about directing onto this new project I'm doing for Bloody FM.
Tell us about it, Hannah.
There's a ghost in here? Who said that? What's going on?
What's the ghost of self-promos to come? The Dead. All right. Yeah, no, The Dead it's a Bloody FM project. It's an anthology podcast made in cooperation with the George A. Romero Foundation, which is a pretty big deal.
That's how you say incredibly badass, I think is the phrase.
I think about this every day. Like, why am I the one chosen for this project? I am petrified of zombies. I'm literally so scared of zombies. Maybe that's why.
You must know your enemy.
I guess? I don't know. So every writer has 4 episodes to explore an aspect of the zombie apocalypse that doesn't focus on the survivors as much as it focuses on the people who don't make it. And it's fascinating how every writer decides to do that. And, you know, I am already taking the things that I learned about characterization, how people react in horrifying situations, how to make it sound like someone is scared and still strong, or scared and still dealing with it, or scared and about to lose it, without just making, like, say it louder this time, you know, like that kind of thing. Nuances. And Ella taught me a lot about that, but also, like, you know, the ways in which the actors approached the script in Dracula was with a finesse that I think about all the time. And
yeah,
because of that, I can take some of that with me. And, you know, I know a bunch of them now, which means I can be like, hey, David Alt, do you want to be in my zombie show?
Help.
Which is also very fun. Anyway, tune into The Dead. It's great.
It's hard to even explain, like, the level up after having worked on this. Like, I feel like, you know, in an RPG, when you hit, like, a certain level and you get to, like, get a new class or something, like, I just unlocked the big boy gun, you know? I feel like this production has taught me so much. And because everyone I'm working with is so incredible, I completely agree. Like listening to these actors' performances and how they approach multiple takes on a line, or how they approach re-recording, like even just stuff like, oh, like I flubbed a line, let's go back and re-record it. Like all these little technical things that these performers do is gobsmacking. I mean, these people are just very good at their jobs. So I think my number one thing that I learned on this project is like, stop trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in podcasting start building a bad habit in doing everything on their own because that's who you have access to, right? Like if you're going to start your own podcast, chances are you don't have people lining up at the door to help you. But being able to comfortably step forward and step back and adjust my responsibilities and roles on this piece and know that it's going to still be stellar, because that's what I care about, right? Is like, yes, I want to do the work. I want to be involved in the project, but I just want the project to soar. And to have such an incredible team to know that you can let people take on important work and that they'll do things with it that you could never do.
Yeah.
That's what's really cool, right? Is like listening to some of the sound design. Like I'm a very different sound designer than Tao is. And it's been interesting hearing those differences. I don't do a lot of sound design anymore, and that is by choice because it's something I learned on this project, right? Is like, yeah, I can do it, but I can also like cook a steak. I'm still going to pay someone else to do it way better than I could. Like, so I've kind of taken on Pacific's perspective on this, which is that the more hands that touch something, the more good that gets put into it. Because people fill out each other's flaws and they fill out each other's kind of like bumps. And also we expand on each other's strengths.
Yeah.
That's been my number one learning experience for this, is that being in a big team, if you're managing it properly, is an absolute force multiplier in terms of what something can be.
It is so true. I think I see that a lot because, just by virtue of the job, I listen to a lot of audio drama. So I listen to a lot of like first time projects by one guy and maybe a couple friends. I'm using guy gender neutral here. And I see the way that one of my favorite things is seeing personal projects by one guy develop into full cast productions with really good sound design because this person walked into the audio drama community and made a bunch of friends and they were like, we love what you make, can we help? And like, and because of that, like, it's all so much better than it possibly could be. It is one of my favorite things in the world to watch another creator develop, and it's a privilege to get to be a part of that kind of same creation arc where, it's just me and
classic.
My friend Catherine, who I found in a media class and said I might be able to pay you eventually, and then suddenly there's, I know like 30 amazing actors who have been on a show, and then suddenly I'm on this project that's bigger than God and like largest thing I have ever done, and it's maybe the most amazing, and getting to be a part of it was, I don't know, it fills my heart with warmth because I didn't have to do it alone.
The team is just, it's an unbelievable group of people, and it's not always like that. Especially like what's been incredible for me to see is not just how talented everyone is, because everyone knows that people can have talent and skill, but also just how good everyone has been to work with. Like I don't think there was really any conflict on this project whatsoever. Like there was no, every recording session, people were just having a good time, and like, people are really aware of each other's strengths and what makes them great artists. And it's been a really joyful process. So I think maybe that's the other thing, right? Is like, I want to maintain that joy across projects as much as possible.
I think it helped going in with the understanding that if there is conflict, we have processes to deal with it. I mean, Giancarlo was our artist representative as well as being the best dang cowboy, that side of the Mississippi.
Whichever side Giancarlo's on, that's the side with the best cowboy.
But, because, we had someone who we knew that the cast could go to if they did have any problems and they weren't comfortable talking to us. And we knew that, we had through lines to deal with those conflicts, and we were prepared to answer questions, and we went in with organization and with focus. knowing that no project is going to be perfect and not expecting it to be, I think that helps too.
What has it been like to be able to make something like this and ride the zeitgeist, both as a classic literary work and as something that's garnered such interest in the last few years?
It's kind of been a blur, I'm going to be honest.
It's been an ego trip, baby. I mean, like, it's really hard. Like, anyone who makes anything has to kind of separate out, like, what do you really take from the project versus what's, like, your ego taking things in. And it's really hard when people, like, dissect your work and really like it to that degree to not get a big head about it.
It's true.
So it's been a lot of active work just to be like, okay, like, a small contingent of dorks that is significantly larger than my usual small contingent of dorks really enjoyed this work. And that's great. Like, I'm so happy to hear it. But the stuff that really impacts you in the long run are the stories of how people are sharing this with other people, for me. So, like, a lot of things like, oh, like, I'm listening to this with my kid in the car or whatever, or, you know, this is getting me through long shifts at work. Like, when I can have that kind of real world impact, like, that's where the money is for me. Like, that's my guiding light. And so in that way, working on a piece that has been so zeitgeisty, that has had like a place in the internet culture, has been, it's good in that I get to hear more of those stories, right? Normally you get to hear like one or two of those the entire time you work on a project. It's like one person reviews your podcast or sends you an email, and that'll send you for months into bliss. And on this one, we've been so spoiled to hear about how much people are interacting with it, how much people are sharing it with people in their lives, and how much it's improving some people's life experience. Like, that's fucking, it is priceless. It's what I do it for. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting spoiled, but I think this piece in particular is probably an unusual one to be a creator on, because the fandom, such as it is very focused on critical thought and critical reading.
Yeah.
So I think that we've gotten a kind of rosier experience than other zeitgeisty creators, because the people that are drawn to the work are thinking really hard about it and how they fit in with it. And therefore, I think we're getting less of that, like, toxic engagement. We're getting less, like, weird parasocial stuff. Like, the people that are engaging with our work are self-selected to be people that think really hard about the things they consume. And that's also been amazing.
I will say, by percentage, we're getting less toxic stuff and weird parasocial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by percentage, for sure.
We're both in the Tumblr inbox there, Stephen. So
yes. Yes.
Yeah, that said, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, like, I got a 1-star review on another show the other day that completely missed the point of the show, which feels great for me. And, like, the 1-star reviews on our show are mostly about, I can't believe they decided not to be racist. And
Die mad about it.
And you know what? I can, like, let that go a lot easier than I can. I don't understand this premise and therefore it's bad. To that end, like, I think you're right. I think that we have a really intellectual and a really, like, healthy fan base comparatively. And it's been really nice. I will say, you know, as far as people sharing it with people, the number of moms that I hope to get into audio drama because of our efforts, I think about that all the time. Like, how many moms can we get into audio drama?
This one's for the
Let's
moms,
get some
for
more
sure.
moms. You're listening
Hello,
with your
mothers.
mom? Fantastic. Another win for me.
Well, and teachers, too. That's been incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello,
Hello, moms. Hello, teachers.
Teachers,
Maybe slide
yes.
more audio dramas towards you. We got an ask in the Tumblr inbox that was like, "Can I use this in my classroom?" And I was like, "Yes, please. Yes. Go. You don't need to ask. Use it."
Yeah. And if we can be of any further help, like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a teacher now. I know about curriculum. Let's talk curriculum.
Well, it's so important to get kids engaged, too. Like, the performances that our actors gave are so immediately engaging and tell you so much about these characters right off the bat. Like, how could it not be enchanting or like re-enchanting for kids that are, it always sucks when you're being forced to read something. But when you can make it a little bit more lively, I think it really does help people stay engaged with what makes literature great.
Yeah.
That is such a good point. Like, I like the idea of it being an accessibility thing.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people who were like, I got bogged down reading Dracula, but this is helping. Because I'm a firm believer that audiobooks count as books. And although we're not quite an audiobook, I am really glad that we can fill that niche for folks who need audio input. And I appreciate that.
Tal, what's it been like for you being in this very zeitgeisty project?
Yeah, Tal.
I have never had my sound design so thoroughly scrutinized by anyone before.
Oh, yeah.
Is that nerve-wracking or great?
Both? Like, every time I sound design, I'm slipping things in there. The way I sound design involves, like, a lot of layers and a lot of just, like, let's get funky with it. I'll be like, hee, I'm gonna sneak Renfield's theme right here. And then people notice, and I see Tumblr posts about it. Or, like, ooh, I'm gonna put this, like, oh, I'm gonna have really angry flipping of pages for this section right here. And then I see posts about it. I'm like, oh, no, I'm being perceived. So, like, great. It's really inspired me to step up my game, but also terrifying. Like, I am an introvert. I am very happy not being perceived a lot of the time. That's not an option here.
No.
So sort of double-edged sword, good and bad.
Yeah. I saw a post talking about the dialogue edit, and I'm like, never has this happened in the history of ever, right? Like,
yeah, no.
Like, people don't, it doesn't happen. Like, but again, I think it's just because the part of the meme of Dracula Daily is taking it earnestly as a text and dissecting it. And so when we put ourselves into the world as another avenue to dissect the text, people said, great. And they got their dissection kits out. And that's been bizarre. Cool. Very cool, but strange.
You know what else I think is, I am not an audio person at all. I don't do anything audio ever. Actually, I did some dialogue editing the other day, and it was hell, and I never want to do it again. And so, because of that, I think it's been, from my outsider-ish question mark perspective, I think it's been helpful for folks to hear our names in the credits in the order that they are, directing and dialogue editing and sound design and producing, and like know that those are different jobs and get to know kind of what that means. And, the fact that we've been able to explain that stuff, like the mechanics, the logistics of making an audio drama, I think has been really cool. And I hope it helps people appreciate other audio dramas more, especially the ones where there's one person doing all the dialogue editing and all the sound design and all the writing and all the recording.
100%.
No, I know Gastronaut is a 2-person team, and that comes to mind. And it is, it's a single narrator show, but I know exactly how much work goes into a single narrator show. And those two are incredible at it. And like, I appreciate that if we can get people to understand how good audio drama makers are exactly, that'll be that's a victory for me.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
All right, I have another question. Speaking of audio drama creators and perhaps aspiring audio drama creators, what are your tips for anyone taking on a project like this, or maybe a little smaller of a scale project like this?
I mean, there's so much you can say, right? Yeah, that's the problem I have.
I have many tips. The first one is, it's probably harder than you think, but it is worth it.
Yeah.
And if there's a part of it that it's not worth it for you, then find someone else to help you with it.
Clean synthesis. I was going to say something very similar in that, like, you're getting into this because you care about it. And because you care about it, you have like opinions about what's going to make it perfect. Everyone who's ever made a thing ever has a perfect idea in their head. And by the nature of reality being imperfect, that perfect idea is never going to exist perfectly in the world. So you have to become comfortable with some degree of grit in the process. There's going to be times where things don't turn out the way you wanted them to. And in some ways, it never gets easier. I've found, like, the better you get at something, the more you can see your own flaws. But just try to remember that, like, people don't know that perfect idea. They have no clue how perfect it is in your brain. What they get is art. And people are able to parse, like, well-intentioned, earnestly made art that has one or two bumps, and they're willing to forgive those bumps most of the time. So I guess, like, don't let your perfectionism get in the way of making something that you want to exist in the world. That would be my advice.
Perfectionism is a killer.
It's a killer, especially in this genre.
Get rid of it. It's useless to you. It will do nothing.
Tal, what's your advice?
Yeah. You've made 1 million audio dramas, more or less.
I feel like my first bit of advice is to just do it. Just start, figure it out as you go along.
Yeah.
There's so many free resources online. I realize Google is maybe less useful as a search engine, but things will still come up. People are constantly writing more. And then I think my second bit of advice is to be aware of the scope of your project. And if you have two ideas and one is smaller scale, start with that one.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's one thing to, maybe have a narrator and minimal sound design and, like, a framing device, 10 episodes to a season. And then it's another thing to do regarding Dracula and have 110 episodes with a bunch of different shifting narrators and really ambitious sound design and all of that. And I found that starting smaller to begin with lets you sort of learn what you need to do to be more ambitious. And a lot of the times I see people's first shows are super ambitious, which is great, but then their execution stumbles and then the show never gets made.
Yeah.
And it's better to make a show with a slightly smaller scope and have a show instead of having something extraordinarily ambitious that never gets made.
It's also fun, right? Like, it should be fun.
It's fun.
There's always going to be parts that aren't fun, but, like, follow the fun. Do the thing you like. If you like to write, then write the show and let someone else act it. If you like to act, then find someone who writes and go with that. Like, I think that there can be a real kind of, like, hustle grind set mentality in podcasting, particularly when you're seeking out advice. And it can be very toxically individualistic as advice goes. So just remember that, like, if you're not having fun, you can do something else, right? Like, you can find the things you like about it and then find people that will do the things you don't like. And that's not any less meritorious. That's not any less important or good. And the final result will be better.
Yeah.
It really will. The first thing that I did when I had a little bit of money to spare for in between was hire someone else to do the transcripts because I hate that. It's the worst.
My least favorite part is dialogue editing. So I'm always so grateful.
It's so good. I don't understand why people don't like it.
You are a magical
It's
person for
wonderful.
believing that, Stephen.
It's so, but listen, and I've been on this rant before, but, like, so much of the meaning comes out in the dialogue edit. Like, the difference between a character, like, pausing for 2 seconds and 3 seconds is all of the difference in the world for the final product. Like, this little micro, give me the little details. Get those little details to me.
I understand what you're saying, like, artistically, in theory. That sounds so boring, dude.
See, this is my point, right? Like, do the things you enjoy. There's always going to be some freak like me who takes on all the stuff you think is garbage is someone else's favorite part. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
You know what I really enjoy? Figuring out times all the actors can meet. That's great. I love doing that. It's my favorite part.
Another thing I hate.
You're a monster. You're some sort of inhuman beastie.
But, like, if it all works together, it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
I am so glad we had you to coordinate all those recording sessions, Hannah.
Oh my God. It wouldn't have been made otherwise. Like,
I'm so glad that I didn't have a job while I was doing that because it was a whole job. In a good way, I was on vacation.
Yes, I'm learning the production of this show is integral on at least two of us not having a job at one point or another. Huh.
Yeah, for real.
it's true.
Fascinating. The things we learn. All right, I have like a question I think that is fun and easy. What would your dream book to adapt into an audio drama be?
I have so many answers for this. God damn.
Y'all ever read the Queen's Thief series?
No.
No.
Okay. There is already an audio drama called The Thief, so branding would be difficult. However, this series, the Queen's Thief series, it's a part political drama, part alternate mythology. It's sort of, it feels historical, even though it is definitely a fantasy, because the mythology that the writer is building isn't real. But it's like Byzantine Empire feeling, fantasy feeling political drama with an unreliable narrator, which I've never met anyone who can like guess the ending of any given book in this series. And like, oh my gosh, and the characters are perfect. They're perfect. And I would love to adapt that. They are definitely a Disney Hyperion joint, so we'll never be able to do it. However, like Megan Whalen Turner, hit me up.
I want an adaptation of Carrie so badly.
Ooh!
Because Carrie is a collection of documents. It's in the same vein of Dracula and that epistolatory storytelling method, which was a late addition to the book. But there are these interstitial sections where the whole book is framed out as basically a congressional hearing about what happened in this town where a bunch of kids died at a prom. And so you could pretty easily translate that into a podcast without changing much of the text in terms of like, you know, this is documents from the Library of Congress. Like, we were required to keep all of these recordings from these hearings. And then you could pretty easily kind of swap perspectives from that more literal, diegetic kind of thing to there's a swoopy sound effect or some music or something, and then you go into the more fictional world of whatever. So like, here's what happens at the trial that day, and then here's what happened along the path. And that book is so gothic in its construction, in that kind of inevitability that you feel throughout it. Like, you know something terrible is going to happen from page one, and it's still such a gut punch. That I think that construction for a narrative is so powerful in audio. There's just something about it that, like, the knife is already driven so deep by that kind of tragedy that to have it like in your headphones or whatever really just maximizes the damage emotionally, which is what I strive for. So I've been thinking about a Carrie audio drama since forever.
Do you want to know something in Dance Macabre, which I have recently read, which was in fact written in the 70s? Stephen King talks about how much he misses radio shows, like horror radio shows, talking about how it's the perfect medium for horror.
I'm telling you.
And I wanted so badly to like write this man a letter and say, sir, have you tried podcasts?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
it's impossible to do that, by the way. However, like, I want this now. You put this in my head, Stephen, like a curse, and I want it to exist, and it's not going to. And that's frankly rude.
I know. Yeah. Tal, what's your answer?
My answer is this book called Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. Fucking incredible novel. It's about the end of the world and Christian extremists and trans identity and like body dysmorphia, and it's full of horror and like these creepy crawly creatures and like the monster within you, and I think it would slap as an audio drama so hard. I've sent this book to Pacific and been like, Pacific, please, I need you to get Bloody FM to contact this author and let me make this book, because it's just like, it's so good, and it would work so well in audio because of the horror. Because like in the book, there's these monsters that are described very gruesomely, And I think being able to add to that with terrible, grisly sound effects would be so good. And you would still have the same effect of like you are visualizing the monster as you read the book and also as you hear. So everyone's going to have different ideas of what like these things look like. And it would be so good. Anyway, Andrew Joseph White, I know you're listening. Big fan of Read Dracula for sure. Let me adapt this book, please. It's so good. Like the book is definitely not for the faint of heart. It's definitely horror, but like best book I read this year.
Ooh.
For sure.
Just gonna pull that up
Yeah.
on my Goodreads real quick and just add that to the list. Yeah, thank you.
It's so good. I don't even want to say more because it's like you just read it. Listener, person listening, read the book. Thank you.
This cover is gorgeous.
Yeah. The cover art is also very good. That is my answer. And then sort of pivoting back into show production itself. This is another me question. I want to know if y'all preferred the shorter episodes or the longer episodes of the podcast.
That's a hard question.
I just preferred when there was actual dialogue so that I wasn't directing a monologue. I hate directing a monologue. That's not fun for me.
Oh, I have such conflicted thoughts about this. You can't make me choose. These are my children. You can't be like, which one of your children is your favorite, Steven? They're all beautiful for different reasons.
Okay, then just share your conflicting thoughts and I will allow that.
Okay, fine. All right. So I loved the short episodes because that's part of the like meta joke of this whole project. Like part of the thing here is it's almost like an immersive sim, right? Where it's like we've set ourselves out a bunch of rules and then they're going to interact in weird ways. The rule is we can only do the thing that happens on the day, which means that sometimes our episodes are 2 fucking seconds long. Those episodes tickled me because it's like that's us committing to the bit, right? Like outside of the context of this project, those would not be good episodes.
No.
But within the context of this project, they could be really good, right? Like, especially like an important telegram that comes through and then nothing happens for 2 days or whatever. You're like, what's going on? So I'm fascinated by those as a kind of experimental aspect of the project that we've made. That being said, like, obviously longer episodes, you just have more space to really like establish a mood and fully explore it and get those deep, rich character moments. Like, I feel like you really have to warm up into listening to a podcast. Like, there's usually, you need to be introduced to the world of it. And those longer episodes allow you to be more fully in the world. So, yeah, I guess my answer is that I love them both for very different reasons.
It's a good answer.
I liked the short ones because I got to play with like, how long can I make these short episodes? You know, like the Telegram ones were so fun
Right.
to just mess around with.
Yeah, they're like little tone poems.
But then like, yeah, with the long ones, there was more sound design to do.
Yeah.
I know you like your experimental audio, Tal, so like it strikes me as a very like experimental audio thing to do to see how significant you could make this 2-sentence telegram.
Yes, it's so fun.
It reminded me of this art exercise I had to do for a costume design class where we were given a thing to draw a sketch of, and we were given 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 1 minute to sketch it, which I think is a pretty classic exercise. But I think that the long versus short episodes had a similar feeling for me, where it's like these short episodes, you have 20 seconds to make sure this bad boy sings, and like any imperfection in those 20 seconds is going to be the only thing in the episode. So the work was shorter, but because of that, it had to be much more focused.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really, really cool experience.
I think, okay, I do have an actual answer for this. I think that with the shorter episodes, I think if I didn't trust the cast so much, I would have been much more micromanagey about how they were delivered. So I do like the longer episodes because I got to be part of things, but I like the shorter episodes because I know I can trust David Alt to make a 2-sentence telegram sound really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Oh, that's actually a really good bridge into this next question that is not from me, that someone, I think, asked on Tumblr. What was your are main criteria for choosing the voices of the three major narrators?
Ooh. For me, it was, for Seward especially, how much do I want to shove this man into a locker?
Yeah, we've talked about the locker criteria for sure.
We've also, I think, spoken on the Blorbo criteria.
Yeah. Quick Patreon plug. If you want to listen to Stephen and I talk about Hannah shoving Seward into a locker, you should join the Patreon and listen to the November Q&A. Okay, continue.
I just really think the problem is that of all the characters, I relate to Seward the most. And I'm like, I hate that part of me. Screw this guy. Which is a problem. But like, I don't know, like Johnny in particular, he's so good at like that narrow line between utter insecurity and complete blowhard confidence. And like he dances across that. Like that line is his tightrope. He's some kind of acrobat man. So like they're so good. Okay, I'm done.
I want to talk a bit about Mina.
Yeah.
And what we needed out of Mina, because that's such a rich, complex character, both in the text and in the history of representation of women in literature.
Yes.
We needed someone that could believably show so much courage and so much grit, and also be completely unafraid to experience a whole range of emotions, from deep, deep love to unbelievable grief and mourning, and to not have those two things feel like they're in conflict. I think that it takes a performer who's really in touch with their internal states, especially on a microphone. Like it's hard to lie to a microphone. In the same way it's kind of hard to lie to a film camera. You can't over exaggerate too much or it comes off as very camp. So we needed someone that had a real earnestness to the tone, and fucking Isabel just did that. Like it was like from the very first audition.
Oh my gosh.
Her capacity to express emotional subtlety kind of almost nonchalant is upsetting. I don't know. Like it's really, really amazing. You can tell how much craft she has. And I think it was maybe the first part that we listened to and we're like, oh, well, it's her. Like, I don't remember there being any need for debate over that. Like, it was just so clearly, yeah, this is someone who has strength and emotional honesty, and people are going to just fall in love with her, which is important because everyone in this book loves Mina so much. Like, So you as an audience need to understand why that could be. And I think that her performance really fleshes that out.
That's for sure. Isabel is, I don't know if primarily is, I think primarily a stage actor, but stage, screen. And, you know, there's always the concern with someone who acts visually. Do they know how? Wow, do you guys hear that? I think someone is leaf blowing my roof.
Yes.
Someone is leaf blowing my roof. Apologies. I was going to say so many nice things about Isabel. Someone is leaf blowing my roof. What are you doing up there?
Maybe they have nice things to say about Isabel too. Did you think of that, Hannah?
Have you listened to regarding Dracula? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'll just lean into the mic and maybe you can take the background noise out, but
we'll deal with that in post.
Yeah. The concern is always with visual actors, do they know how the audio work? And I know that Isabel has done audiobooks in the past, and that was definitely a big selling point when it came to their chops. But like the fact that they know how to control their voice so delicately is just like, it's absolutely incredible. Okay, I'm gonna lean away now and not say things.
You want to talk about Jonathan Tell?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. So we have mentioned the Blorbo criteria before. I forget which bonus, but it was really important for us that Jonathan Harker sounded like our little guy, because like he is the first character that the audience hears and sort of experiences the story through, and he's the first little man to go through the horrors. And it was really important for us from the get-go to really hit the beat of like, he's just a little guy. Why is this happening to him? You know, and pull the audience in with like his earnestness and his kindness and it's just like, oh man, the paprika, or like, note for Mina, this is great. And just be so wholesome and lovely, and then put this little wholesome, lovely guy through the horrors. And because we hear so much of his narration from the beginning, it was crucial to hit that note of, oh, I want to keep listening to this, because otherwise people aren't going to make it through to hear anyone else. They'll leave and have heard what Ben and Kareem, and it's like, those two are great, but we got to get you invested so you hear everyone else. And the way Ben Galpin can just do the Blorbo scale, he nailed it. He's just like, oh man, just a little guy. But then Ben can also nail the like going through the horrors part of just these terrible things are happening and he doesn't really understand what's going on until he does. But then he doesn't know how to get out of it. And like, he loves Mina so much, he wants to see her again, but there's all these terrible things and like, he must persevere. And then in the second half of the book, where he's our white-haired anime boy protagonist of just like, I'm gonna kill that guy, the end. And Ben nailed that too.
Yeah.
Of just that vengeance. And so the range. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was coherent, but that's how I feel.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I will say too, like the thing that unites all three narrator characters is that emotional earnestness. Like there's a capacity that all three of these actors have to convey very specific combinations of feelings in a way that fleshes out the source text, you know? It's not just that Jonathan is scared. It's that he's scared and he's fucking pissed. That dude threw my mirror out of a window. Like that part of what makes that scene so weird and scary is that it's like, yeah, what do you do? Right. And I think that having him not just have this surface level, oh, my character is scared, but to understand like the absurdity and like, it's a little bit weird. I'm a little bit confused. I'm a lot a bit scared and I'm quite a bit pissed off, but I'm here to do a job. Like that amount of complexity, being able to convey that through your performance is the thing that all three of these performers have in common.
We had a second question about casting, which was, is there any particular minor characters that you wish we could have had more of a spotlight on?
Oh.
Quincy Morris. Please give my boy everything.
Quincy Morris,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
More Quincy, more Arthur, but also I can't help but think about Sister Agatha. I can't help but think about the first mate.
Yeah.
I would listen to let's take Last Voyage of the Demeter and fix it so it's like really, really good, and then just cast Alistair.
Yeah.
And then and make it an audio drama, and let's do that. Like, let's do that, and we'll do it even better, and it'll be great, and I want that.
Yeah. You took the answer right out of my mouth, so I'm with you there.
And then for our final question, what's your just favorite moment of the podcast?
The first time that we get to hear Kareem monologue as Dracula and just understand, oh, fuck, he's Dracula, huh?
Yes.
Like that for me, like there's so much good stuff happening up until that moment, and there's so much good stuff happening in general. Sound design, I think the way that all of our ensemble performers do, it's phenomenal. But I feel like that for me is really the first moment where you're like, oh, this is like the culture, right? Like this is the part of the story that we all know from literally hundreds of years of like passing it through different adaptations and different generations. That moment feels so staggeringly large to me, and maybe to me personally because I am such a horror person, to just have this like unabashed villain monologue. Just everything else that follows, like you need to pass through this magnificent bastard situation. I know in any piece of work that I love, there's like a moment where you're like, hey, wait a minute. hey, does this rule? Hey, wait, hold on. Like, does this shred actually? Like, when things go from good to great, like, I have that moment where I'm like, whoa. And Kareem's work as Dracula for me was that whoa moment, where I was like, oh yeah, this baby got legs. Let's go. Like,
I think my favorite moment has to be Renfield singing. The choice of the Child Ballad 23 was inspired, first of all, Stephen, so good work on that.
Thank you.
The fact that Renfield has been acting really weird for a couple of days now, and like, especially if you're not familiar with the book, you're like, what is going on with this dude? The fact that he just had a really sympathetic conversation with Mina, the fact that he is being pretty coherent and not very fawning in the last few episodes, and then he just comes out with a song, and you're like, the depth of humanity that Felix gave it, the fact that, you know, I think that you could just pass right over that in the book, but in the audio drama, you are forced, like Mina is forced, to overhear him singing this song, this folk song that he's probably known forever, and like reckon with his humanity as a person who is about to sacrifice his life for Mina. Like that hits best for me, I think.
I have kind of two favorite moments where just hearing the final everything come together. One is where Kareem just hits his normal British accent as Dracula. That is just a moment that would only work in audio, and it fucking works. And oh my god, I was like freaking out at my desk the first time I heard that. And then the second moment where I was like, this would only work in audio and we hit it well, is when Quincy shoots the bat through the window.
Yes! Oh my gosh!
I jumped. I jumped at my desk multiple times, and every time I startled myself, I turned the volume of the gunshot down, and I still, at least twice. But you know, you're lulled into this false sense of security by this just Van Helsing monologue. Quincy leaves, and you're like, huh, that's weird, but then you kind of get lulled back into a sense of safety and security, and then it's like, pew pew! And then you just hear Quincy outside just be like, my bad, sorry about that. And it's just this instant levity. And that was another moment that just worked really well in audio, and I loved how we hit that. So those are my two favorite moments of just, it just worked. It worked. It was great. I love it.
You're so right.
That was our final question.
I would like to say thank you so much for joining us for this absolutely buck wild journey that we've all been on. Thank you that we got to do this for you all and for ourselves and with the folks that we got to do it with. It has been a huge privilege, and I will never forget our time together. I've made lifelong friends. Like, come on, let's go. So thank you for joining us for our producer Q&A. And please stick around for Carmilla. You should join us on our Patreon, which is
patreon.com/RE Dracula.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I have a really good next question to follow this.
You broke up again.
Fuck! Okay, hang on. I know the problem. I know the problem.
The part of the reason I laugh so hard is that your video is at a slight delay. So I heard fuck and then I saw your head whip back. Like...
Okay, give me a sec. Computer, don't do this to me. Don't do this
please,
to
computer.
Me. Please.
Computer, baby.
Please.
Come on. Come on, computer. Don't be like that. Come on.
Please. Please.
Baby boy, please. Come on.
Are you shitting me? This is gonna take 5 hours to say.
I always remember,
corner
like...
audition. Time out. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I always think of y'all ever watch Leverage?
No.
Because most of it is set in Boston, So one of the things, okay, so it's a bunch of thieves, right? And they Robin Hood all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
They take down like capitalism. But because it's mostly set in Boston, one of their go-to like grifter personas is just a guy from Boston, which is so funny.
That's very good. One of my all-time favorite videos lately, while Tal is figuring things out, is a recording someone took at the Taylor Swift part of the tour that happened in Boston. And it's just like when your accent comes out mid-song, and it's this woman singing along. Oh God, what song is that? I don't know. I don't remember the name of the song, but it has a bunch of like AR words in it. So it's like crying like a baby in the back of the car, coming home from the bar. Oh, it just like the joy and rapturous Bostonianness of it is just brings me home.